Hello and welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute since I've sat down and talked to you about books, and we're already halfway through May, but that doesn't mean that it's too late to talk about April. So let me tell you about the 5 books that I read in April, a mixture of romance, fantasy, horror, all of the things that I like to read. So let's get started. So the first book that I read in April was No Matter What by Cara Bastone. I was lucky enough to meet Cara in April at a Dial Press event, and this is my first book that I've read by Cara. It is called No Matter What. It is her most recent release, and it focuses on our two main characters, Roz and Vin. They go through a traumatic experience as a couple that really sets the tone for the rest of their marriage. And instead of this traumatic event bringing them closer together in their marriage, it kind of drifts them apart, and they're trying to process it separately. Trauma can show up in a lot of different ways in a couple. A lot of times when maybe you're still trying to figure it out individually, it's hard to come together with your partner and navigate it within your partnership as well. I am a new reader to Cara Bastone. I haven't read Promise Me Sunshine or Ready or Not, but I think my next one might be Promise Me Sunshine, just because we're coming into the summer months and the cover scream summer. I know absolutely nothing about the book. Roz and Vin were a very endearing couple. Vin is our male main character. Roz is our female main character. This takes place in New York. Roz is trying to navigate her individuality within the relationship. You know, I think that a lot of the times when you start your relationship at such a young age, it's kind of like learning more about yourself as you grow within this identity of your relationship, and that's something I can relate to. So it was really interesting to read about. I really loved Cara's way of writing. I loved that I got to meet her last month. She was just so personable and like so excited to talk about the things that went into her creating these characters, and I really enjoyed that. If you haven't read this yet, I highly suggest reading it. I really enjoyed the relatability of the romance and how honest it was to read about messy characters without feeling like you were intruding in their drama. Like, I think sometimes when you read about a messy marriage, it feels like salacious and like, ooh, like very Desperate Housewives, but this felt so real in a very like relatable way, and I loved it. And I can't wait to read the next Cara book that I pick up. Enemies to Lovers by Alisha came out last month in April. This is the second book in the Partners in Crime series. The first book is called Partners in Crime, that came out in October of 2022. But I have not read the first book, and I feel like this book, it wasn't really difficult to piece together what happened in the first book. So if you are interested in reading a Desi South Asian take on maybe like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith situation, I would suggest picking this up. Our female main character is Sejal Chowdhury. She is a eldest daughter of a criminal family, and she's navigating how to work through this messy family drama. It's not like a lot of South Asian romances that I've read, because there is this like adventurous take on a Bonnie and Clyde, just like it's Slim and Queen. If you've watched that movie, it just is really fun. I think Alisha Rai was like a great writer for this. I have never read a book by Alisha Rai, but now I am a fan and I do enjoy it. Definitely pick this up if you're looking for just like a fun, quick romance to read. It was a great audiobook. Sanila is the audiobook narrator, and I love anything that she narrates. So I enjoyed this one. Pick it up if you're looking for something fun and easy to read. And the next book I read was Lady Tremaine. This is a fairy tale retelling of the evil stepmother's POV from Cinderella. There is a lot about Cinderella that I did not remember, which I recognized after I went to book club after reading this and hearing all the little pieces that all of my fellow book club girlies picked up. And I was like, whoa, that went way over my head. I really was having like kind of trouble with the audiobook. It's actually narrated by a Bridgerton character, but I was having a little bit of trouble with the audiobook. I think the accents on top of like the timing, this is very Bridgerton. I got Bridgerton vibes from the jump, and I did enjoy that. There is a lot of bird talk that I kept on going back to. Our main character, who is Lady Tremaine, is a bird connoisseur. Yeah, there was a lot of bird talk, so get ready for that. But I enjoyed this. I don't know if I'm a fairy tale retelling kind of gal. I'm glad that it took me out of my comfort zone, but I think I'm more of a fantasy girly. Like, this is not fantasy, and that's clear. I think this is a fairy tale retelling. I would advise doing a little bit of backstory research on Cinderella before you pick this up, because I think a lot of the details went over my head, to be honest, because it's been a million years since I've thought about Cinderella or remember anything about the story. I did love the second half because it kind of got her a little dark and twisty, and it was about a woman who was taken advantage of getting her redemption. And I mean, I love a revenge story. So this was very interesting. I loved being able to talk about it in book club. And if you aren't into fairy tale retellings, I definitely recommend picking this one up. The second to last book that I read in April was Japanese Gothic by Kylie Lee Baker. I was lucky enough to go to Kylie Lee Baker's launch event in Brooklyn at the Twisted Spine, and I was able to meet her and get my book signed, and it was such a great experience having to gone to that event, read this book. I got an e-arc of it from The Hive, so I was able to read it. First, let me tell you what it's about. So we have two main characters in two different timelines. In October of 2026, which is our present timeline, we have our main character, Lee, who is putting the pieces together as to why he murdered his college roommate. He flees New York after having this memory of his college roommate being killed by him, and he flees New York to go to his father's new home in Japan, where his father is making this new life with his new wife, and Lee's trying to find his role in all of this after his mom has passed away. And while he's navigating his father's new home, he starts to learn about Sen, who is our second main character, and she is in a timeline of October 1877. And Sen in her timeline is part of samurai lineage. And you learn about Sen's world and how she's kind of going through a tumultuous time of war and how her family is suffering throughout it, what's expected of her as a person of a samurai family, and she's just trying to gain the respect of her father and doing all that she can do. So it's very interesting seeing the juxtaposition of someone in modern times and someone in 1877 samurai times. In this lyrical, wildly inventive horror novel interwoven with Japanese mythology, two people living centuries apart discover a door between their worlds. One of these people is a ghost, and one of these stories is a lie. Something is hiding beneath the house of sword ferns, and Lee and Sen will soon wish they'd never unburied it. This book is so well done. It felt like I was at the edge of my seat listening through all of it. It felt so atmospheric. I read two other books by Kylie Lee Baker. I've read Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zing, and I've read I'll Find You Where the Timeline Ends. Both very different. Bat Eaters is a horror book, adult horror book, and I'll Find You Where the Timeline Ends is like a cozy YA fantasy that has magical realism. At the end of the day, Japanese Gothic is clearly a horror book, but I felt like it was as atmospheric as I felt in As I'll Find You Where the Timeline Ends, just because I felt like that book, I was in the novel, and it was so well written and so descriptive and just so like engaging and immersive. And I didn't read the audiobook for that one. And this one, I was reading the e-arc and listening to the audiobook, and it just felt doubly immersive. It was so great. It was so well written. There is like some chilling and horror and gore and all the things that we love as horror girlies. So I would recommend for those of you who enjoy horror, if it's triggering to you, don't read it. Check out the trigger warnings. But I really did enjoy this one, and it did not miss for me. It was like I was listening to it just waiting for like impending doom, and things just kept on getting better and better. For the story, but like worse than in actuality. And I just really enjoyed it. It was such a fun time. And I think there was a lot that I learned about this story just in regards to like samurai culture, and then hearing Kylie Lee talk about it at the event was really interesting. There was so much about what it is to be a samurai and what like the history of samurai warriors in Japan really is and what it means. And it made me intrigued and want to like actually learn about it outside of this book. And I love when books do that. I love when books intrigue you to learn more about something that you never thought would be on your radar. So really enjoyed this one. If you are a fan of Kylie Lee Baker, do not miss this one. It was really great and probably one of my standout reads from the month. And then the last book that I read of the month was Wait for Me by Amy Jo Burns. This was a Celadon book club pick for Book Spines and Shorelines, one of my book clubs that I'm a part of, and we read it as a group, and it is an amazing audiobook. If you are looking for an audiobook that is including songs, this is based on our main character, Elle Harlow. I have to just give myself a little quick reminder because I read this so long ago. The tagline for Wait for Me is a novel about the bond between two female folk singers, the love stories that haunt them, and the music that brings them together to burn bright. So this focuses on our main character, Elle Harlow. She came to the height of her career in 1973. It's dual timeline, and you walk through these two POVs that we're experiencing. and you kind of go through Elle's build up of her career and then the peak of her career and then finding out that there was some betrayal in her career and then kind of like going through the pits of it, while we're also simultaneously learning about Marijan, who is the second timeline that we're following, and she's more present day, and how Marijan plays a role in Elle's career and what goes from there. This book just felt a little bit, what's the word? Like, I want to say unfinished, or this book just felt not fully baked for me. The audiobook was amazing. There is inclusion of song lyrics and music, and that is so beautifully done, and I would definitely recommend the audiobook. I thought it was amazing, but I felt like the story itself just felt a little bit like it left me wanting more. I love when books include lyrics and songs. August Lean is one that comes to mind that I really enjoyed. Love is a War Song is also another book that I really enjoyed. Loved the audiobook, but I was kind of like left a little bit wanting more at the end of the story. So those were all of my April reads. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for listening to me yap about all of the books that I read in April. I hope you added some things to your TBR, and if you've read any of these, let me know down below, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.